Hey everybody, welcome back to Deserts of Plenty. My name is Ralph. Uh, so today I want to talk about a concept that before I knew it existed, I never thought about it. But as soon as I heard about it, I was like, oh, of course. There's so many things like that where you not even aware that these things exist. That's why I love unknown unknowns. And this one is really about why praise seems ineffective, but yelling seems to work. uh, because I've noticed that before too. And and now I have a firm understanding of what's likely going on here. So, um, what's really happening, what underpins this idea is in statistics, it's called a regression to the mean. And so what that means, it's a statistical idea, and what it means is if you have like a nice bell curve and a nice average. So let's take something like in sports, let's take like a baseball hitter who's hitting 250. So, and that's not a very good average, but that's 1 in 4, right? Every 4 times they get up at plate, one time they get a hit. And that's their average. They might, for a period of time, hit 5 or 6 hits in a row, and they might, for a time, be hitting 300, 350. But over time, they're going to, unless they've done something to change their approach, they're going to regress back to their mean, back to their 250, right? So another example is height. You might, the average height of males, I think, is 5'9". It's around there. And so you might meet 5 people in a row who are all over 6 feet tall, but keep shaking hands, keep meeting people and taking the average height. And over time, the average height of people will come back to 5'9". So that's what regression to the mean means. It means that you are, if you're taking anything that has a normal distribution, you might for a time get some extreme examples. But over time, those, you keep averaging, averaging, averaging. Eventually, everything will come back to the mean. So, yeah, so this happens in all kinds of human performance. So height, uh, y- um, baseball statistics, like the number of hoops you might, basketballs you put into a net. If you're sit and do free throws and you hit, 5 in 10, you might for a time hit 8 in 10, but eventually you'll come back to 5 in 10, unless you're doing something to change your approach and your skill level, which is something else entirely. But for a time, you might overperform, but then eventually you'll come back to the mean. You might underperform too. You might go for a time where you only hit 3 in 10 shots, but eventually that will come back up. So this concept is in Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, another book that I highly recommend. And he ran across it. He was working with, I believe it was the Israeli Air Force, and he was giving a talk, and one of the instructors laughed at this idea, and the instructor said, "Look, man, if a cadet goes out and they screw up, and I yell at them, they get better. But if they do something really good, and I praise them, it doesn't work." So his conclusion was that punishment works and rewards do not. Kahneman's correction was that great performance was talent plus good luck, but if you keep going, the next attempt, the luck will go away. Or bad performance is talent plus bad luck. And in your subsequent performances, the bad luck will go away. So over time, things even out. But if you're taking like one event here and there, you can have, wide variety within that small amount. So why do humans misinterpret this? Well, we have a storytelling bias. Our brains don't like randomness. We like cause and effect. We like to have nice little stories, nice simple explanations of the world. So, if you're watching, and sports is the best analogy for this for me, but if you're watching whatever sport you like, uh, and for a time, someone is just overperforming, and they're like, wow, they're so far out, they're really, they are excelling and they're killing it, right? And then they sort of at the very end, they fall short. We like to say that they choked or they got overconfident or, the something caught up to them, right? but it's just regression to the mean. And the same thing if someone is like they're really good, but they're having a tough time, right? And but at the very end, they they win or they pull it out, and we're like, oh, we say things like they came through in the clutch, or they found their God or their grit or their motivation, determination. But in reality, these things are just statistical drift. Things are going to go back to the mean. Right. So, one final little analogy, coin flips, right? If you take a coin and you flip it 1,000 times, on average, that coin's going to come up 500 times head and 500 times tail. In reality, it might come up like 510 one and 490 the other or whatever, but it's going to be roughly around that. You flip coins enough and it's going to even out. It's going to be 50-50, assuming there's nothing wrong with the coin or the way you're flipping it, right? But if you did that, if you did flip a coin 1,000 times, you might find, oh, I get heads, like runs where you get heads 7 times in a row or tails 10 times in a row, right? There are formulas to figure out how likely that is to happen. And that's not important for this, but it's just like, of course, it's going to happen, right? But if those coin flips were like a good outcome versus a bad outcome, the same thing happens. So performance works the same way. Streaks happen, good luck, bad luck, and then they fade. So what is the practical takeaway from all this? For me, it's obvious. It's like, oh, when my daughter does something unexpected that's good, I acknowledge it. But then the back of my head, I'm like, well, that's probably not going to happen again. And the same thing when she does something that's, I guess, unexpectedly, disappointing or something on the other end of that. I don't get too harsh on her because I know, well, these are just outliers, and that's not who she is. I'm not talking about like super extreme things. I'm talking like, oh, she didn't bring her dishes to the sink, or maybe, I came home and I found that she had done uh, some chore that wasn't on her list to do, right? I'm talking about this kind of stuff, not like huge things. So, most of the time people will drift back to their personal averages. So, what I like to do with myself is let's raise the average over time. So, for example, like I run and I'm working on, improving all the time. And so when I go out to run every day, I don't try to set a personal best every day. That's not my goal. My goal is what I track my times, and I know what my average time is, and I just want that average to raise slightly over time. So if I take like the last 10 or 20 runs and I do 20, all I want that average to do is just to creep up slowly over time. And over the course of months, weeks, months, years, that thing goes up quite substantially. Like I can look back now at my times a year ago and like almost laugh at how much I have gotten better. But in that way, slow and steady. I don't put too much pressure on myself. I'm not hurting myself. I'm not chasing gains. I'm just slowly getting better over time. Okay, so just in closing, extreme highs and extreme lows happen. They're temporary, but that's not the truth of it. The mean is more of the truth. Of course, we can get better and we have epiphanies and we do, oh, something I couldn't do, I can now do. Like that does happen. I'm talking about behavior. I'm talking about, long-term trends. So, like trying to raise the mean slowly over time is the way to go. But the idea of a regression to the mean, it's one of those things that once you know about it, you see it everywhere. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great week. And we'll see you all here next time on Deserts Plenty. Bye.